This is lesson 7.4 called Solving Polynomial Equations in Factored Form. What is factored form? Well, factored form looks like the equations that you see in this box on the left here. Factors are things that are multiplied together, and clearly x minus 1 times x minus 3 are two things multiplied together. If you look here at standard form, what you see is terms. You see things that are added or subtracted, like x squared and negative x and negative 2. So anyways, we're going to try to solve polynomial equations in factored form. Now, I just wanted to give you guys a heads up about what you're supposed to do in the student journal. This is page 219 in the student journal. And what you're going to do in this first exploration is you're going to try to match these guys with these guys. And so what you can do is just draw a line from like this guy here down to whichever one of these you think it matches. And then you'll do the same thing with B and C and D and E. Then I want you to go and I want you to draw a line from this guy to whichever one of these that it matches. And you're going to have to use a little bit of algebra, or at least a little bit of algebra thinking, in order to accomplish that goal. In the next part of page 219, this is very straightforward. All you have to do is take, in this case, in this column, x equals 1. So just go ahead and plug in a 1 for x here and a 1 for x here, and then you're going to check to see what you discovered. Sorry, you're not going to check to see what you discovered. You're going to check to see which of these values of x, either x equals 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, make this equation true. So I'll walk you through the first one. If I plug x equals 1 into this first into this guy, x here and x here, what I end up getting is it'll be 1 minus 1. That's if I plug x in for 1, and then I'll plug in again 1 for x here, so that'll be 1 minus 2, and this will end up being 0 times 1 minus 2 is negative 1, and that'll end up being 0. That's the result I'll get. So does x minus 1 times x minus 2 equal 0 when x equals 1? Yeah, it does. So you could write the word yes or put a check mark. Check mark means yeah, it's true. And then we can go and we can try, let's try the number 2 in this case. So we'll go ahead and we'll say 2 minus 1. I'll replace this x with a 2. And then we'll say 2 minus 3. I'm sorry, 2 minus 2. I'm still looking at the first equation here, 2 minus 2. And that'll be 1 times 2 minus 2 is 0. That gets me 0. Does 0 equal 0? Yeah, it does. So apparently, if I plug in x equals 2, then this equation is also true. The next thing I'm going to check is, what about x equals 3? So I'm going to go ahead and try, let's go 3 minus 1, and then 3 minus 2. And that'll get me 2 times 1, and that'll get me 2. Does 2 equal 0? No. So as a result, I'll say no, x equals 3 does not work. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to go and fill in the rest of the table. You'll try plugging 4, 5, and 6 into equation A, and then you'll try plugging x equals 1 through 6 for equation B, and you'll do the same for C, D, E, and F. On the next page, exploration 3, I'm hoping that you're going to find to be sort of interesting. It's not too simple and it's not too difficult. So I hope you'll like it. The instructions say the numbers 0 and 1 have special properties that are shared by no other numbers. And for each of the following statements, you decide whether the property is true for 0, 1, both, or neither. And then you're going to explain your reasoning. So for A, B, C, D, E, and F, you're going to fill in this blank with either a 0 or a 1, and then you're going to write down some words that indicate why you believe that it was 0, 1, or you could write both or neither, and again you would explain why. On page 222, what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and solve all of these problems using the zero product property that I explained in a previous video. So for instance, in this first one, x times x plus 5 equals 0. either x equals 0 or x plus 5 equals 0. If I was you, I would write x plus 5 equals 0 and then solve for x. Obviously, some of these could be a little bit trickier. 2b minus 6 times 3b plus 18 equals 0. In order to get the answer for that, you're going to have to set 2b minus 6 equal to 0 and then solve for b. Then you're going to have to set 3b plus 18 equal to 0 and then solve for b. And then you'll get two answers, and I'd like you to see you box the answers. On page 223, you're going to try to factor out the GCF for problems 13 through 18, and that's all you're going to do. Just factor out the GCF. So for example, I'll give you a head start. I'll show you how to do number 13. For 13, what you'll do is you'll say, well, I could rewrite 6x squared plus 3x as 2 times 3 times x plus 3 times x. It looks to me like there's an extra 3 and an extra x in both of these terms. By the way, let me show you this right here is, let me give you a different color here. This guy right here is considered a term because it's all multiplied together, and this guy is considered a term. It's just two things being, well, things that are multiplied together are factors. But because this thing where all these things are being multiplied together is being added to another thing where things are being multiplied together, we say that when things are added together, we call each of them a term. So in this case, oh, and by the way, this term has a bunch of factors, 2, 3, x, and x. Factors are things that are multiplied together. So the greatest common factors, let me get you another color, the greatest common factors for these two terms are 3x. 3 times x are the two, well, 3 and x are each factors. If I multiply them together, I get the greatest common factor for these two terms. So let's go ahead and put it all together. And the answer I'm looking for from you guys would be to take 3x out in front of this guy. And then whatever's left over, 2 times x plus, what's left over after I get rid of that 3 times x? That you're saying 1. I'm going to go ahead and put a 1 there, okay? So this would be the answer that you could box for problem number 13. I'd like to see you do that for 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. If you have questions, you're going to let me know on, you can contact me anytime by email or by Remind. And if you'd like, we can set up a Zoom meeting. Also, I can make additional videos if need be. In the bottom part of this page, you're gonna factor, but then you're also going to solve using zero product property. So again, look at problem 19. In problem 19, if I do something like, let's say I factor out the k, and so I end up with 9k plus 1 times k equals 0. Well, zero product property, either k equals 0, so that's one of my answers, k equals 0, or 9k plus 1 equals 0. So 9k plus 1 equals 0. Solve that for k. That'll be one of my answers. In this case, it looks to me like k equals 0. And if I solve this equation, I would get negative 1 over here divided by 9. It looks like negative 1/9. And that would be the solutions for problem 19. I'd like to see you do that for 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. And there's a problem at the bottom that's a word problem. And you can also solve by factoring the greatest common factor and using zero product property. And I'd like you to give it a try. That's all I got for you for today. Anyways, good luck.